Once upon a time, in a very beautiful African village, where traditions were intertwined with the judgments of each family. In this village called Sosoka, traditions were highly respected. The villagers placed more importance on tradition than on anything else. In this village, no one had the right to take the law into their own hands, and the punishment for anyone who defied the prohibitions would be either decapitation, hanging, or banishment from the village. Despite all these atrocious punishments, the villagers lived very happily, and happiness was present in every hut, or at least, in almost every hut. In this village lived Seifu, a noble herdsman of the village. He was very handsome and very generous. Seifu dressed very well, and loved to help his neighbors. He was very rich and respected in the village. In the village, many women dreamed of having a husband like him. Seifu had 2 wives, Mariama and Fridis, 2 extremely beautiful women. However, the 2 women did not have the same reputation. One had a good reputation and the other a bad one. Seifu also had a young daughter, who was very beautiful. In the village, Seifu's family was always on every woman's lips. People wondered how Seifu managed to be so successful in his life. Seifu was not an avaricious or secretive person. Every time, he would simply say that hard work pays off. People held him in high regard. Mariama, Seifu's first wife, was a very beautiful woman, kind and very extroverted. Mariama had a nasty flaw. She could not keep her mouth shut. She talked about people a lot and spread rumors about them. Mariama had 2 best friends, Viviane and Germaine. She spent a lot of time with these 2 women when she had nothing else to do. Mariama was an excellent cook, but she was not well liked in the village. People hated her because of her dirty behavior. Despite her beauty, Mariama did not have any children with Seifu. As for Fridis, the second wife, she was a very good and highly respected hairdresser. Fridis had a young daughter who was very beautiful, just like her. Unlike the first wife, Fridis was highly respected in the village. People liked her very much and respected her for her good behavior and her skill in the field of hairdressing. Seifu loved his little daughter Adia very much. She was 5 years old and very well behaved. She loved the first wife very much and dreamed of being beautiful, elegant, and intelligent like her. But the reality was different. The 2 wives argued a lot at home. Mariama was jealous of Fridis, who had a child while she did not. Every day, Fridis forbade her daughter from going near the first wife, Mariama, because according to Fridis, her co-wife was a wicked witch. But the child, afraid of being scolded by her mother Fridis, pretended to listen to her. Seifu loved the first wife, Mariama, much more than the second wife, Fridis, which displeased the second wife. On one side, there was envy, and on the other, jealousy. A few days later, Mariama was sitting with a very worried look in her empty restaurant, a restaurant that no one wanted to visit despite the good quality of the service, lost in her thoughts. She didn't know how people managed to find out that she was talking about them. After a few minutes of reflection, she realized that her 2 best friends had something to do with it. In reality, when they stayed together spreading rumors about others, each of them, upon leaving her place, would go and tell the other village women, who were their subjects of discussion, which rekindled the hatred and the boycott of her restaurant. Mariama wanted to progress and also have customers in her restaurant. Mariama, the first wife, was suffering a lot. Her husband Seifu's family called her barren, and in the village, she was hated. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fridis was always happy and very successful in the village. Her hairdressing skills were even widely recognized, all the way to the royal palace. 1 week later, Mariama had a fierce argument with her 2 best friends in the village. They called her a useless woman. After they left, Mariama entered her restaurant with tears in her eyes. She was crying not because of those 2 women, but because she had no children. She blamed God for being unfair to her. It was in this suffering that she decided to go see a marabout in the village named Buba. When she arrived before the occultist marabout Abu, she explained her problem and her desires. After listening to her, the marabout replied that he could help her, but there were conditions to be met. She had to drown her stepdaughter in a large cooking pot, the one she used to prepare food for her customers. For the second condition, the marabout paused for a moment, looked at her exceptional and exciting curves, and said, "You must sleep with me." Mariama, desperate, didn't know what to do. Should she do what was being asked of her to gain wealth, or should she refuse everything and have nothing? Continuing to endure the second wife's mockery and the disdainful treatment from the village women. After a few minutes of reflection, she agreed to do everything to gain wealth. But if only she knew what was to come. That same night, the marabout Abu slept with Safia's wife. That day, the marabout was very happy to have made love to the wife of the richest man in the village, while the victim in question lay there, already regretting the act she had just committed. The other condition would not be so easy, killing her co-wife's daughter, an act worse than anything. Once she was dressed, she asked for a plan of action to succeed without being exposed. It was then that the marabout Abu reassured her and gave her a piece of paper and a black powder. He said, "Once you are home, put this black powder in the little girl's food, and the next day she will come to you. You will then do as you see fit, but you must put her in the cooking pot and seal it all with this red cloth." He handed her the red cloth as well, and so she left the marabout. However, at that very moment, at Fridas's home, she was lying in her bed having a horrible nightmare, where her daughter was in danger. She quickly woke up and went to the little girl's room, but when she arrived, the child was fast asleep. She went back to bed. Mariama, for her part, had not yet returned home. Saifu, worried, was waiting for her in the living room. Since she was his favorite, he was uneasy. Mariama arrived late at night. Saifu asked her where she had been. She lied to him. He swallowed all her lies. Meanwhile, Firdis, the second wife, was hidden, observing them. Then, she went back to her room, crying. She too wanted her husband to look at her, the same way he looked at the first wife. She had given him a child, she was influential in the village. But her husband preferred the troublesome first wife over her. That same night, Mariama, Safia's first wife, put the black powder in a glass of orange juice. She went and placed it in the room of little Adia, who was sleeping. The next morning, the little girl Adia thought the juice had been left by her mother while she was sleeping, and so, she drank the orange juice to the last drop. After finishing it, she began to feel strange sensations and became bewitched. From then on, she would only obey the first wife, Mariama, but would pretend to listen to others. Fridis left the house for her workshop, but that day, she had not taken her little daughter with her. It was a grave mistake. When Mariama was leaving for her restaurant, little Adia wanted to follow her. Mariama agreed and left with her. Once at her restaurant, she drugged little Adia to make her fall asleep. After that, she placed the little girl in a large cooking pot, sealing the lid with the red ritual cloth. After a few hours, little Adia had grown weak and had only a few hours left to live. Quickly, Mariama brought her back home to make it seem like she had nothing to do with it, and hurried back to her restaurant. But what she didn't know was that on her way back with the child, her two best friends, with whom she had quarreled, had seen her. They quickly went to Firdis's workshop to warn her. When they arrived, the two women alerted her and told her everything they had seen. Worried, Firdis left her workshop with a knot of fear in her stomach. When she arrived home, she found her daughter weak on the bed. She called the healer, and her husband Saifu returned after being informed of the situation. The healer, after examining her, said their daughter was doomed and had only a few minutes left to live. Saifu fell to his knees before the healer, save her, but the healer said he could do nothing, as the little girl was suffering from a strange ailment that he, himself could not explain. After a few minutes, it was the end. Little Adia grew cold, with a single word on her lips, "Mama." It was a time of utter grief for Firdis. She cried with all her might. Her life was over. Her daughter, her princess, had left this world. It was sad and tragic. A few days later, Mariama began to grow increasingly wealthy. Her restaurant was very full, and people no longer hated her. Her life in the village had changed. People loved her food and respected her a great deal. She hired a servant to help her manage the endless stream of customers. Saifu, furious with his second wife, accused her of being responsible for their daughter's death. With each passing day, he made her more miserable. She was mistreated. He no longer touched her, no longer ate her meals. Day by day, Firdis grew sadder, while the first wife, Mariama, who was responsible for everything, lived as if the tragic drama had never happened. In the village, the malicious suspicions of the village women, who had once admired her, turned into humiliating prejudice. Firdis, unable to take it anymore, closed her workshop and stayed at home. Meanwhile, Mariama, happy and remorseless, advised their husband Saifu to send away the second wife, Firdis, claiming she was responsible for little Adia's death. But in the village, some women had their doubts and did not believe these claims. for they had witnessed the love Fridis had for her daughter Adia. Meanwhile, fool that he was, after careful thought, Seyfiu listened to the first wife, Mariama, like a bewitched man. One evening, following a simple argument, he threw her out of the house, calling her a witch. Fridis, with tears in her eyes, didn't know what to do. She begged for his forgiveness on her knees, but alas, he seemed unwilling to go back on his word. And so, Fridis was thrown out onto the street. In the village, no one was willing to take her in. Everyone believed she was responsible for the eternal rest of her own daughter, Adia. Others mocked her. Her enemies laughed and delighted in her suffering. Fridis had become the laughingstock of the village for a crime she never committed. Still crying over her innocence, she decided to return to her mother, who lived in the neighboring village. But before all that, she decided to go and say a few words at the grave of her daughter Adia, the child she was accused of killing. Meanwhile, Mariama was very happy and proud to have successfully stolen everything the second wife had in the village. From now on, she was the only one in the household. But if she had known what was going to happen to her, she would not have done what she did. They say in life, if you destroy a person, be it their life, their dignity, their name, or anything else meant to make that person look bad in society, you will receive karma that is more powerful and multiplied 100-fold. Another saying goes that if you help a person do evil, when nature decides to deliver the karmic retribution, everyone will get their share. Meanwhile, on Fridis's side, she arrived at the cemetery where her daughter Adia was buried. Kneeling before the grave with endless tears streaming down, she said, "My darling, I'm sorry I wasn't close to you that day. I'm sorry I wasn't a truly protective mother. My darling, today I am accused of a crime I did not commit. I have even been cast out by your father. If you can hear everything I am saying, I want you to avenge me and expose all those responsible. My daughter, if your death was natural, rest in peace. But if someone is responsible for your death, please do not rest. Avenge yourself. And now I bid you goodbye." Suddenly, a warm wind swept through the cemetery, and so, Fridis stood up, gathered her belongings, and left the village. But as she was leaving the cemetery, she encountered 3 village women, including the 2 who had warned her. The 5 women expressed their sorrow for her. They told her they knew she wasn't responsible for what she was accused of. Fridis thanked them. She felt her heart grow somewhat lighter. At least, among all the villagers, there were people who believed in her. And so, each of the 5 women took out some money to help her with transportation costs. Fridis could hardly believe it. It was the first time she had felt such kindness. She accepted the money and thanked them. Fridis left the village to go to her mother in the neighboring village called Borga. At the same moment, in the cemetery, specifically on little Adia's grave, one could see her tormented soul, sitting there with tears in her eyes. This scene showed that she had returned to settle the score with the one who had killed her. A few days later, after the second wife Fridis had left, the first wife Mariama discovered she was pregnant. But unfortunately, this pregnancy was not from Seyfiu, but from the marabout Abu. In reality, the only person she had been intimate with recently was the marabout Abu. Panicked, she didn't know what to do. Then she calmed down and found a solution. She decided to force her husband Seyfiu to be intimate with her, so she could attribute the pregnancy to him. That same night, she succeeded in her plan and was with him. A few months later, Mariama announced the good news to her husband. The man was very proud. In the village, people had heard the news. Some said that the second wife had been responsible for what happened to the first wife Mariama, but now that she was gone, things were better. A few weeks later, while sitting with his friends drinking the local brew, the marabout Abu told anyone who would listen that he had slept with Mariama, Seyfiu's wife. Everyone was surprised, but since he was drunk, no one believed him. That same night, in his den, he was completely drunk. He was sitting when suddenly an unexplained coldness swept through his den. In a sudden movement, he saw the ghost of a little girl. Before he could even speak and ask who she was, he received a ghostly slap full of consequences. The next morning, the marabout Abu was found in the village, dressed like a madman, endlessly repeating, "She has returned and she wants revenge." Wherever he went, he would only say the same thing. Over time, people began to get used to it, and no one paid him any attention. And so, he became the village's forgotten madman. People had forgotten who he was before. To them, he was just a lunatic. Some villagers talked a lot about his condition. According to them, he must have disappointed the fetishes that protected him, and that would explain why he had gone mad. A few days later, Seifu had a dream where he saw his daughter Adia being killed by the first wife, Mariama. In the dream, she was being drowned. He kept having the same dreams every time he closed his eyes. A few months later, in Mariama's restaurant, the servant girl was terrified to see the ghost of little Adia in the toilet. The servant was so frightened she couldn't scream. Her heart was racing a mile a minute. The servant ended up soiling her clothes. The spirit of little Adia said, "Leave this restaurant. Next time you will die," and after that, she disappeared. The servant fled the village, taking with her the little money she had earned that evening. The next morning, when Mariama arrived at her restaurant, she could not find the servant who had fled the night before. Furious, she went into the kitchen and saw the ghost of the little girl Adia, whom she had sacrificed to gain what she possessed today. Shocked, she said, "No, you're not real. This is an illusion." Little Adia, with a very serious expression, was holding a whip. With an unpredictable movement, Mariama was whipped. The pain was so indescribable that she screamed in her restaurant. Alerted customers came to see and witnessed a strange scene. Mariama was screaming, saying, "I will tell the truth. I am the one who killed Adia, my co-wife's daughter." People didn't understand what was happening. She was being beaten. Then, one person among them saw the scene and alerted everyone. "This woman is being whipped by the ghost of a little girl." In turn, that person received the whip and fainted on the spot. The others started running everywhere. Mariama was taken before the queen of the village. Upon arrival, one of the queen's marabouts sprinkled a substance to calm the tormented spirit of the child. Before the court, she remained silent at the stand. Then the marabout explained what he had seen. "Dear queen, this woman present here is responsible for several things. First, she committed adultery to receive help from a certain marabout in the village. So that he would help her become famous, she offered herself to him. The second thing she did, she killed her stepdaughter for success. My queen, today everyone pays the karma for deeds they thought were in the past. As for the marabout Abu, he has gone mad. As for her, I do not know, but she is suffering and will suffer until the end." Meanwhile, her husband didn't believe it. He asked the royal palace's occultist marabout what the evidence was. The marabout said, "You are the one who caused all of this. If you had loved both women as you should have, this would never have happened. To answer your question," he stretched out his hand and said, "I am not responsible for this and I am not inventing anything. Everything I am saying comes from the spirit of the little girl she killed." Seifu fell to his knees. "Mariama, for the love I have for you, tell me this marabout is mistaken." Mariama, wanting to lie, received another lash from the whip. She told the truth. "My dear, it's all true. I have disappointed you." The queen said, "Oh Mariama, you have committed a very grave act. You destroyed lives just to satisfy your ego. You deserve the death penalty, and may this serve as a lesson to all those who would dare to commit such completely selfish acts." Her husband, on his knees, said, "My queen, she is pregnant. Please forgive her." The queen refused and ordered the guards to seize her. Suddenly, her water broke. The moment had come. But if only he knew what was about to happen. The queen, having no choice, granted her only one more night to live. And so, she was taken to a hut where a traditional African midwife was present. But under the queen's strict instructions, guards surrounded the hut. Meanwhile, inside the hut, she was giving birth. Mariama demanded to see her husband. She gave birth to a baby girl. When he arrived, he was proud, with tears in his eyes. Mariama was very weak. She said, "My love, I am sorry for having been the monstrous woman in your life. Forgive me." Her husband forgave her, and she said, "I would like you to name this little girl Adia." With those words, she died. Shocked, Seifu left the hut, crying. The guards reported the information to the royal palace. The queen was furious. She had wanted to make Mariama pay for what she had done to her best friend, Ferdis, who was her favorite hairdresser. After Mariama's burial, Seifu went to the other village to ask the second wife for forgiveness. On his knees, he begged for her pardon, but she refused at first. Later, she accepted, following her mother's advice, but she refused to go back with him. Everything had been done, but she was disgusted by Seifu's household, and so, he returned to his village empty-handed. In the village, people had heard the news. Some were unable to speak, for they were the ones who had accused the innocent woman of being responsible. Seifu raised the little girl named Adia, knowing she was not his biological child, as it was his way of atoning for his mistakes in life. If you are not capable of loving two women with the same degree of love, never show favoritism, as some women use this to make their co-wife suffer. This leads to things like jealousy, hatred, and constant quarrels. To all those who dream of succeeding in life, work hard instead of looking for easy ways out. It is better to struggle and succeed than to succeed through shortcuts and vile deeds. The end. And so concludes this story. Please subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment to share your feedback, and don't be shy, share the video widely. Note: the translation maintains the tone and message of the original text, including the direct address to the audience at the end, which is common in video or online storytelling formats.